I've said it on many occasions by now, but tactility really goes a long way in making something feel just a little bit more special. And with that in mind, this hasn't gotten old one bit. So for more than a month, I've been on the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3, and it's already gone with me on a number of trips near and far, while sitting comfortably in literally any of my pockets. It's been one of my daily mains for everything from general usage to more power user endeavors like my real-world camera test, which if you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check out the link that's appearing above and is found below. So it's time for me to give my thoughts on this foldable that might mark a turning point in the category. This is Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Here's what worked and what didn't with the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3, after a word from the sponsor of this video, Faraday Future. Shouts out to Faraday Future for sponsoring this video. You're probably aware of their electric vehicles, but there's actually a lot more to the brand. At their recent 919 Futurist Day event, Faraday Future showcased their first production vehicle, the FF91, and this car looks like a dream to ride in, let alone drive. The thing is, Faraday is way more than just the car itself. They also have a whole ecosystem that includes powertrain, design, and battery tech. Basically every part between the car itself and the experience of actually driving it. As Faraday Future opens up as a public offering, they have a spirit of co-creation involved with their upcoming releases and tech. This very 919 Futurist Day event was a great example of that. There was a real love of cars and tech at this show, as the 919 Futurist Day event also included a car meet that brought out some of the coolest vehicles across the automotive spectrum. And they hosted a toy drive so that the enthusiast community could give back to the greater community. But of course, the FF91 was the centerpiece and a look at what might be the future of both EVs and mobile tech. Check out what they have to offer by checking out the link in the description below and learning more via the Faraday Future app. So thanks to Faraday Future for having me out for that event and for sponsoring this video. I've taken this phone around to a bunch of places, and in every scenario I've been happy to have a daily driver that can easily pack down and fit basically anywhere. Sure, foldables have been around for a bit now, but there's something better and more refined about the way Samsung built this Galaxy Z Flip 3. The hinge is really strong, even after flipping and folding constantly throughout each day. And this boxier design with flatter sides makes it a bit easier on the eyes and easier on the grip, making for a phone that is easy to fathom whether open or closed. It's obvious how much room it's going to take up in a bag or a pocket, and the entire time that it's in there, you know that it is basically protected because the screen is folded onto itself. For the most part, this is your usual smartphone experience, only you can fold it down or you can have it open anywhere along that axis, which is where many of those possibilities come into play. You can have it opened up and then turn on the flex mode by engaging the hinge just a little bit, and you can make YouTube videos a bit easier to view, even if it's just using part of the screen. But at least you don't need to have some sort of accessory to prop it up because it's doing all of that on its own. The same goes for the camera, either the front or the back, because either side can be angled accordingly for easier selfies. Overall, if you're basically okay with the general ways that we use smartphones, I think that the Z Flip 3 does a great job of adding just enough to make using this phone feel like some sort of radical shift, and that will mean more and more people will become more interested in it. Part of making a foldable more palatable for general audiences requires making it as accessible and as fun as possible for casual users, and I think Samsung has done a pretty great job of that. The phone is already full of style, with multiple colors that have people clamoring for ones like the lavender or the pink edition. Check out Issa's video, by the way, in the link appearing above, but personally I have the all black everything edition, and I still think it looks really dope, because of its foldability, sure, but also because I do like this matted feel a little bit better than some of the glossier finishes. But then Samsung's own advertisements and accessory lineup make it clear that they know this phone might greatly appeal to the lifestyle crowd. I mean, think of the people who might be shooting TikToks in flex mode. They already got themselves a pretty damn cool looking phone, and they might want to turn that style factor up even more. Cases like this Hypebeast Ready silicone strap case already add some flair. And actually, Issa and I have been finding out that out in Korea, these straps are already being replaced with branded versions. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a big aftermarket customization market open up everywhere else. I do have to admit, however, that while this phone does have a proper high-powered spec sheet, I wouldn't say that this is the phone that's made for massive power users. Let's start with the main internals, which include the Snapdragon 888 and 8GB of RAM. Now, to be clear, I've had no issues whatsoever getting through any element in the Samsung UI, and with this high refresh rate screen, everything just feels that much more fluid and that much more rapid. But it's when I get pretty nuts with my use cases that I notice the phone might not be tuned for crazy people like me. A perfect example is the real-world camera test back in Hawaii, where I brought the battery life down in a hurry, making the need for a power bank pretty apparent. And I didn't really learn my lesson actually, because the same issue came up when I was using the phone as my social media, video, and photo editor during that Faraday Future event. I was shooting everything with my main cameras and then putting them all here using CapCut to edit everything together, and I actually ran out of battery before I could finish the last couple pieces of content. And even in other situations, I have noticed a little bit more slowdown here than on other phones that might rock similar specifications. Genshin Impact actually doesn't run super smooth on here for me, either at high graphics or with the 60 FPS mode on, whereas on other devices, I've been able to play it pretty easily with both of those settings turned on. Now don't get me wrong, the fact that I have a bunch of different games installed on this phone should make it clear. It's still a good time with any game that you might find in the Play Store. It's just that on that particular title, I noticed that I couldn't actually max out as easily. And then I mentioned the battery a second ago, and that's one thing to consider if you're looking at the Z Flip 3 as a straight up power user. I already talked about that whole power bank situation, but one other thing that I kind of count as a negative is that this phone doesn't have super fast charging. I mean, it has a 3300 mAh battery that you could drain in a hurry, so it would be nice to be able to top it back up in that same amount of hurry with something over 15 watt charging. It is nice that wireless charging is available here at up to 10 watts, but one other thing that I have to mention is that the reverse wireless charging isn't really something that you should rely on a whole lot. I'll actually demonstrate it live right now. I had a day when I was running out of battery on the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, which I've been using and I'm working on a video on right now as well. But while using the wireless power share from the Z Flip 3, it only kept the watch from just dying. It actually wasn't topping up the watch much at all. If it's at 40% right now, as I put it onto the back of the Z Flip 3, it would only remain as such and not really get any higher. In the same vein as the 15 watt charging, the other part of this phone that feels like it needs a boost are the cameras. They're still the same sensors as before, albeit enhanced with software updates, and of course this cover display, which we're going to talk about in a second. For the most part, they perform exactly the way you would expect from a Samsung phone. While there's nothing particularly amazing coming out of this camera, the pictures that do come out with signature Samsung saturation look pretty great in bright situations with diminishing returns in diminishing light. Video quality is the same across the board, and I will give Samsung the usual props for providing 4K video recording in every camera, even the front-facing camera. But if you ask me, the Z Flip 3 actually has a bit of a weird positioning in the Z line, because despite being the phone that is being marketed towards that lifestyle crowd and the potential content creator crowd, it's the one that doesn't get a zoom lens. Instead, the Galaxy Z Fold 3 gets the zoom sensor. That's not to say I personally use zoom all the time, but if you ask me, if you're going to make a phone that has a great form factor for various shooting scenarios, why not give it the most or the best possible cameras? But I do kind of get why the zoom lens isn't there, because there had to be room for the updated cover screen, which we're seeing right here. And I think it's a pretty good trade-off, because I think this implementation is about as good as it has been and what I would expect it to be. We've seen cover displays or rear displays on a few other devices so far, and while they try to be good companions to the general phone and to the camera, this one does the most. The cover display is an easy way of getting to your notifications and to get quick glances at them, much like a smartwatch, and then it is up to you to actually open up the phone after that and do something about them. There are also all of the widgets that provide certain features like a timer, which obviously I use for my tea, for steeping my tea, and of course there are customizable clock faces that you can use any picture or GIF on. Clearly, in my case, I'm currently watching the Korean drama It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Can it do a little bit more in this sense? Sure. Maybe the ability to put any widget from Android on the cover display should be there so you can extend the possibilities. But it's really as part of the camera that this thing shines. And while you might not be getting a look into your whole frame most of the time, you have enough to gauge where you will be in that frame. And that's whether you're using the cover screen camera app like I'm using right now, which will only net you like squares for both your photos and videos. On the other hand, you could be using it the way that I think you should, by opening up the whole phone, getting into the proper camera app, and then turning on that cover screen display preview. Open up the camera app, and using the rear lenses, you have this little button in the corner, and when you turn it on, the cover screen preview turns on and you can just turn the phone around and get shooting. Here I am on the wide-angle sensor of the Galaxy Z Flip 3, and using the cover display, as long as you're basically in the middle of that cover display, you know that you're going to be in the center of your framing. So in all honesty, this cover display makes the camera, even if they aren't the latest and greatest sensors, that much more useful for someone like me that uses phones for content creation. And with the wide angle, vlogging with this phone when I need it in a pinch is as easy as ever. So kudos to Samsung for making this extra feature way more useful this time around. And I think that properly illustrates why the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 is finally properly viable. In the past, the foldable mechanism felt like a gimmick because the phone itself didn't feel totally matured. Now, with the style, the water resistance, and the build quality, it just feels better to use on the regular. The internals are exactly where they should be for everyday users, and while it might have some hiccups with the power users, there's no stopping it from still being useful in those scenarios with a little bit of foresight and maybe some extra accessories. And then, like I keep saying, the cover display is more than just something that makes sense to put on the outside, it is now a legitimately useful tool. So it's no surprise to me that many of my friends, techie or not, have been asking me about this foldable out of pure interest. Even random people that I interact with every day want to know if this is something that they would enjoy, and you know what? I pretty much always say yes. And at a starting price of $999, it's technically more expensive than other phones, which could have better cameras or bigger batteries, but I think the price is just about right for someone who wants to have one of the most unique smartphone experiences that we have right now. For more on foldables like the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 and beyond in the world of tech, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Drop some likes on this video and get into the comment sections down below. Did you pick up a Z Flip 3? What color? Or maybe you preferred the Galaxy Z Fold 3? Let me know why in the comments down below. But with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.